Hello, hello. Harris Benjamin here. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I appreciate it. And today we're going to be going over one of my favorite questions. Not just a question to think about, but a question to ask yourself and to put into practice with every single thing you do in fitness, in nutrition, in work, in every other area of your life that we could ever hope to improve on. This question is relevant and it's incredibly helpful. Okay. This question was posed to me first by Tim Ferriss. I heard it over on his podcast and I've been thinking about it a lot. The question is, what would it look like if this were easy? What would it look like if this were easy? Okay. Because we tend to, many of us, not all of us, but most of us, at least at a one time or another, tend to overcomplicate things, tend to add overwhelm and create stress where it doesn't need to be. Okay? Because being overwhelmed, being, quote, super busy, too busy is a self-created thing. I'm not saying that we don't have tons of things in our schedule. I'm not saying that we don't have a reason to feel overwhelmed sometimes. I mean, I understand it. I certainly feel it. But it doesn't have to be that way, It's about how we look at things, how we react to things, how we act on things. And this question, what would it look like if it were easy, can make a lot of the areas in our own lives, in my life certainly, that seems like they're just destined to be complicated and challenging and stressful, really, really easy and simple, as long as we just show up and execute day after day. So the example I like to give is, of course, with workouts. And this episode is not going into the finer details of programming and workout design and everything there, right? That's for other episodes. That's for other articles on my website, coachbyharris.com. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, I would love for you to, and I think there'll be a lot of value there for you as well if you like the show. But I will share with you generally how I think about this question, what would it look like if it were easy, with regards to training and working out. So in fitness, right, we, in general, all want to feel stronger, be stronger, look sexier, look amazing. We want to move and act and, stay flexible and mobile in all ways. We want to have great cardio and great endurance. We want all these things, whether we realize it or not, right? That's a way to just make our bodies and our lives feel at their peak, to have all these fitness attributes. And there's just a, beyond ridiculous amount of not only information out there on how to get these things, but conflicting information. That's the tough part, because you see information from these 5, 10,000 different people that all seem to know what they're talking about, and you hear all these different things. It gets really confusing. So what would it look like if it were easy, not complicated? Training, it would look like, minimal time, maximum efficiency sessions where you just focus on even one challenging set per exercise. Not doing tons and tons of exercises, but checking off, the necessary components of your lower body, checking off the necessary of your upper body, and calling it a day. For me, that is a minimum of 4 movement patterns. So we have a lower body squat or lunge movement, a deadlift or, hip hinge focused movement, an upper body pressing movement, and an upper body pulling movement. Again, for more context on this, go to my website. You can email me, links below somewhere. You can, do anything as far as that, and I will be able to help you a little bit more. But right, that would be it. You would have those 4 movements, let's say, 1 set each, not 3, 4, 5 sets each, not 10 exercises, keeping it very simple. And you would just push them really hard. You would move through a full range of motion. You would get in, you would get out, right? And in that, you would improve your strength. You would improve your range of motion and mobility. You would improve your cardio and conditioning if you're moving at a good pace. And you would do that consistently a few times a week. right? Other days, you walk a bunch, get your heart rate up, you do other activities, sports that you enjoy, and you do that for weeks and months and years. And obviously there's more context and depending on the goal that you have, right? There's more details here, but if you just want to get, generally better day to day, week to week in a minimal way, make it easy, right? And this is how I would do it. Nutrition. What would it look like if it were easy? Instead of all of the ridiculously complicated thoughts about what foods and what types and timing and this and that, what would it look like if it were easy? It would look like you eat whatever the hell you want. You take ownership for what you eat and what the results are, right? I'm not saying eating whatever you want and expecting amazing changes in your body. No, if you eat everything and anything in sight, you're not going to probably like the outcomes, but you have to own that. But eat the foods that you enjoy, that you like. Enjoy, special occasions. Don't limit yourself like crazy. Eat within reason. If you want to gain weight and gain muscle and get jacked, eat more, right? If you want to get leaner and lose weight over time, try to reduce your portions. Again, I'm oversimplifying it. I know that there's much more context here, but we're asking what would it look like if it were easy? And it would be that. As far as anything else, right? As far as, work problems, family, things, other this, that, or, the other, just what would it look like if it were easy? How can I make this exact problem in front of me, this exact situation in front of me, simpler and easier? One example from my business, not from the actual fitness and training part of it, but from let's say the marketing or business side of it that I've been thinking much more about is what would it look like if things were easy? I used to think, okay, I have to have a profile and be putting out consistent content on these 4 or 5 different platforms, and I have to post this many times a day, and I have to do this and do this and do this. And I realized that was just going very wide and not deep, right? It wasn't fulfilling anything consistently in me. That was everywhere. Everybody was doing all of that. And it wasn't easy. It was just a mess. So now what I like to, and this is still a very much work in progress, but what I'm working on more now is, quieting those other channels and not really worrying about a whole bunch of places and just focusing on the one-on-one relationship, meeting more people, one person at a time, connecting with them. If it makes sense, if they want what I offer, talking to them about it, sharing what I do, inviting them in to try it for free, which is part of the reason why I do this podcast, because you are listening right now to me talk on these topics. If you enjoy them, if they're helpful, I have more for you. So again, I would invite you to try my stuff for free. You can then join my email newsletter on my website. You can try out a free session with me through my website or email me, right? I would just focus one-on-one with people, get them to experience what I do. If they like it, they can work with me. They can share it with somebody else. They can do both or, whatever else. And that's it. And just consistently meeting people, teaching, coaching, helping, and trying to grow that. And it's been very, very nice. It's been really simple. It's been a lot less noisy, and it's been a lot easier while also more fulfilling. And that's for me what this whole, bringing more awareness to what I do looks like if it were easy. So my question for you is, whatever challenge you're going through with your training, with your business, with whatever else, what would that problem look like if it could be solved easily, right? If you want to tell me, email me, harris@coachbyharris.com with, this podcast episode and the subject so I can see it. I would love very much to hear your answer and to chat with you about it if you want. Otherwise, thank you for listening. That's all I have, and I will talk to you in the next episode.